Hey, this is Dino. Welcome back. For today's mini lecture, we're going to be talking about strategies for reading academic articles. Many of you get articles that you're going to have to read. Sometimes it can be a bit confusing. This should hopefully help you get through that a little bit easier. Here's a sort of overall summary. Examines are the articles for its audience. Think about why you're reading this article. Skim strategically to identify the main argument or idea. 4. Skim for the article's main organization or architecture. And 5. Other reminders as you read the body of the text. Let's begin with number 1. Examine the article for its audience. You want to see who the publisher is and maybe other clues in the article to see who it's for. There's sort of, for academic purposes, there's one major distinction. You're either going to be looking through major academic journals that are intended for scholars, or you're going to read popular titles that are intended for more general audience. So the audience is a little bit different for those. Time or Newsweek are examples of publications that are more general in nature. When you read an article for the first time, you may find out that you are not, in fact, the primary audience for that text. If this is true, the author of the article may A. reference other scholarly works that you may have read, or may not have read, or cite facts or events that you may or may not have known. From this, you're going to have to make your own decision whether these works, facts, or events are necessary for you. Try to figure that out for yourself. Alternatively, if you want, the first part was for using them. This is if you choose not to use them. If you encounter these elements that you don't understand, you might want to just notice them and try to keep moving through the article as you're sort of skimming through it for the first time. Sometimes you can keep moving without looking everything up through the article. Also, in terms of your own personal, like my own encouragement for you, sometimes you're not going to be the primary audience for an article because increasingly academic articles are made for really specific audiences. If you're not the primary audience, you may not enjoy the writing at all, may be very technical, may be very difficult for you. Try your best to persevere. Number 2, think about why you are reading this article. Like, what's the importance for reading it? Similar to the last point, you may not be the author's intended audience. It may be, this article may be written for someone completely different than you, a completely different audience. But understand the reason you're reading this article can help you stay engaged and read with purpose. Like, you found this article for a reason. Try to read it for that purpose and think about the final paper you're writing. When you're reading the article and reading this specific reading, think about these 3 main questions to help get your head around it. What subject will it prepare you to write about? How does it fit into the main topics you're writing about? And finally, 3, what can you do with the information you gain from reading? By doing this, it'll make it more useful, give more utility for your reading and for your eventual writing. Number 3, skim strategically through the article to identify its main arguments or ideas. Before you even begin reading the text, like this is, again, you want to get an overall purpose of the article. Skim strategically throughout it to locate the author's main purpose and argument. Having this purpose and main argument in mind can help you read the rest of the text. Like, it helps to foreground in your mind what the point of this article is. Because sometimes, especially if it's a very dense article, you may just sort of wander through it and not really know why you're doing it, why you're reading it. There are 3 main places where you can find the purpose or the main point of the article. A is in the abstract, B is in the introduction, and C, maybe counterintuitively, is in the conclusion. A, the abstract. An abstract is an executive summary that appears in academic texts. It's usually a paragraph at the very top of the text. As you're reading through the abstract, try to identify the text's purpose, its main question, its main findings, and why readers like yourself should care. Abstracts, because they're so short, they're really densely written because they're trying to condense a lot of the main points of the article within a very small space. Do not despair if you must reread them. That's a very common thing to have to do for abstracts. If there are terms, if this article you think is going to be really useful to you, but you find a lot of it is too densely written, hard to read, you may need to research the terms in the abstract if you do not understand them. B. Introduction. The introduction is really useful because it often provides very clear statements about the article's purpose, the main questions it answers, and its main point. As a result, the introduction can be really useful. Again, it gives you an overall view of what the article is going to be about. And C, conclusion. Again, counterintuitively, you may think you could find all this information at the very beginning in the abstract and introduction, but the conclusion can also be quite useful. Pay close attention here, even if you assume the conclusion might be repetitive. A well-written conclusion should actually reiterate some of the more important things that you've read earlier on, so it should be a little bit repetitive, so please expect that. In the conclusion, the author may rephrase key points more clearly. Please remember that this may be the only place in the paper where the author discusses unanswered questions that were earlier in the paper. These questions are really useful to you because these questions can give you questions for your own paper. They may be the fuel. Like, say if the original author is talking about something, they can't figure it out, that might be a good cue for you to write about. Like something that they just could not figure it out on their own based on their resources and time and limitations. Number 4, skim for the article's organization or architecture. Before you read the article, again, skim it to get a sense of its organization or architecture. This will help give you a mental map to see the article's different parts and how they function in the overall argument. This perspective can help you easily read the article. It really helps you to sort of, again, if you have the abstract and you know the theme of it, looking at the different parts of it can help you understand what are the main points that are going to be covered in the paper. Here are a couple strategies for building a mental map of the article's organization. This includes skimming the introduction, again, and the section headings, which are normally included in most academic papers. Introduction. You want to look, when you're reading the introduction, for a forecasting statement in the introduction. This is usually kind of an outline that previews the article's content and structures. It'll say, something to the effect that, this paper will be looking at A and B and C and D. So you'll know that those are the 3 or 4 main points. These forecasting statements give you a roadmap to interpret the rest of the article. It's kind of like, and again, in terms of the roadmap metaphor, it's like saying, we're going to go to city A, B, C, D. So you just kind of know the path that you're going to be going through on your map to knowledge. B, section headings. Flip through the article to read all the section headings. These headings help you see the article's overall structure. And of course, look up any terms you do not understand. Again, using the metaphor of the map, when you know the major cities you're going through, again, you'll be able to figure out where on a map you're going to. These section headings act, again, similar to a map and giving a really broad overall view of your paper. Again, all of this should help you kind of get a better contextual idea of what the paper is about. Finally, some other reminders as you read the body of the text. Use your knowledge about the article's main point and context clues to decide which parts of the article deserve most of your energy and where you can skim. Many articles can be 20, 25, 30 pages. I know you're all super busy. You should ideally read all the papers, but given today's internet age, how much scholarship is made, you just don't have the time to read everything. Sometimes there are really valuable sections of the paper that are really useful for you to read in depth. Other parts may not be so useful to you. Depending on what your main point is, your main focus for your own paper that you're writing, this may change your reading. For example, a simple example is you'll read for completely different things if you're writing a paper about marketing, where you may be focusing on business practices like best practices in marketing or advertising. This would be completely different than if you're writing a paper of business ethics, where you'd be obviously focused on ethical issues. To conclude and summarize, some major strategies for reading an academic article. Examine the article for its audience. 2, think about why you're reading this reading. 3, skim strategically to identify the main argument or idea. 4, skim for the article's organization or architecture. And 5, other reminders as you read the body of the text. Hopefully, by doing these things, this will help you read your papers in a little bit more informed, in a simple and effective manner, and not drive you crazy. Thanks a lot for listening, and I look forward to hearing you or having you hear the next mini lecture. Have a great day.